The giant alien ship hung in the sky above Geneva like a silver knife. It was the year 2087, and for most humans, this was only the third alien vessel they had ever seen. The first had come 5 years ago to say hello. The second had come to trade. This one came with orders. Commander William Carter stood at the window of the United Space Command headquarters, his hands clasped behind his back. Beside him, Ambassador Susan Miller adjusted her uniform jacket for the 5th time in as many minutes. "They're early," Carter said. Susan nodded. "They're always early. I think it's a power move." The ship outside was home to representatives from the Galactic Council, a group of 32 alien species who had been traveling the stars since before humans invented the wheel. They claimed to oversee peace and development across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Until recently, they had seemed friendly enough. That changed when humans started setting up colonies too quickly for the Council's comfort. A soft chime announced visitors. The door slid open, and 3 aliens entered. The leader, High Chancellor Zixstar, had blue-gray skin that looked like wet clay. Its 4 eyes blinked independently of each other, and a breathing apparatus hung around what might have been its neck. The other 2 aliens were different species, one tall and insect-like, the other short with tentacles for arms. "Commander Carter, Ambassador Miller." Zixstar's voice came through a translator device. "We trust you have been informed of the purpose of our visit." Carter nodded stiffly. "We received your message. We were hoping to discuss alternatives." "There are no alternatives," said the insect-like alien. "The Council has voted. The decision is final." Susan stepped forward. "Surely there's room for negotiation. Humanity has followed all first contact protocols. We've respected territorial boundaries. It is not your current actions that concern us," Zixstar said. "It is your potential. We have studied your history. In less than 300 years, you went from horse-drawn carriages to faster-than-light travel. No other species has developed so rapidly." "You should be impressed," Carter said. "We are frightened," Zixstar corrected. "Your species evolved from predators. You think like hunters. Already you have established colonies on 12 worlds in just 5 years. Your population growth models suggest you would have a presence in over 200 systems within 50 years. The tentacled alien moved forward, displaying a holographic document. "The decree is simple. Humanity must recall all ships and personnel from beyond your solar system within 30 Earth days. You will dismantle your jump gate technology and cease all research into interstellar travel." Carter felt his face growing hot. "And if we refuse?" All 4 of Zixstar's eyes blinked at once. "Then the Council will enforce the ban. We have methods to ensure compliance. They would be unpleasant for your people." Susan placed a warning hand on Carter's arm before speaking. "We request time to consult with Earth's governments." "You have 48 hours to begin the recall process," Zixstar said. "We will remain in orbit to observe." After the aliens left, Carter slammed his fist against the wall. "This is insane. They can't just lock us in our own solar system." Susan stared out at the alien ship. "They're scared of us, Bill." "They should be," he growled. "No, listen to me. This isn't just about expansion pace. Did you see how they reacted when you got angry? Their species evolved as prey animals. To them, we're the monsters from their evolutionary nightmares." Carter joined her at the window. "So what do we do?" Susan's face hardened. "Officially, we comply. We make a show of pulling back, dismantling technology. We give them what they want to see." "And unofficially?" A small smile crossed her face. "Unofficially, we remind ourselves of something every human child learns early on." "What's that?" "Rules," she said, "are often just suggestions in disguise, especially for those willing to think creatively about them." Carter looked back at the alien ship. "They have no idea who they're dealing with, do they?" "No," Susan said quietly. "But they're about to find out." 3 days after the aliens delivered their message, The leaders of Earth gathered in a secret underground room beneath old New York. Unlike the gleaming public meeting halls, this place had no windows, no decorations, and most importantly, no recording devices that alien technology could detect. Admiral Joseph Clark of the North American Alliance stood at the front of the room. His weathered face showed the strain of 3 sleepless nights. "Ladies and gentlemen, we face the greatest threat to human freedom since we left Earth's atmosphere," he said. "The Council has given us 30 days to surrender everything we've worked for." The room erupted in angry voices. The Chinese premier pounded his fist on the table. The African Union president shouted about alien arrogance. The European Federation chancellor demanded military action. Joseph waited for the noise to die down. "We've analyzed their ships. They outgun us at least 20 to 1. Direct conflict would be suicide. So we just give up?" asked the Brazilian president. "Crawl back to Earth with our tails between our legs." Dr. Patricia Green, Earth's leading expert on alien biology, stepped forward. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and graying hair pulled back in a tight bun. "I studied the Council races," she said. "Most evolved as prey animals on their home worlds. Their instinct is to band together against threats. And to them, we are the ultimate predator." She displayed images of human teeth, human eyes, and human hands. "Our forward-facing eyes mark us as hunters. Our teeth can tear flesh. Our hands can both create tools and strangle enemies. Everything about our appearance screams danger to them." Susan Miller, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "This isn't just about our looks. It's about our history. They've studied our wars, our rapid technological growth. Where they see danger, we should see opportunity." William Carter nodded. "They expect us to either fight and lose or give up completely. But there's a third option." He revealed a simple drawing on a piece of paper, not digital, where it might be intercepted. It showed Earth surrounded by a fence, but with a small tunnel going underneath. "Project Backdoor," he said. "We publicly comply with their demands. We recall our ships. We dismantle our jump gates. We put on a good show." "And then?" asked the Japanese Prime Minister. Susan smiled. "Then we develop new technology. Something they won't recognize, won't be looking for. Something uniquely human." Dr. Alan Wright, a physicist with wild gray hair and a reputation for brilliant but unusual ideas, stood up from the back of the room. "I might have something," he said. "It's theoretical, but promising. Not a jump gate, but a bubble drive. It doesn't tear through space like our current tech. It slides between the cracks." "Will it work?" Joseph asked. "Give me 5 years and unlimited resources," Alan replied. "I'll make it work." The room fell silent as everyone considered the risks. The Australian president broke the silence. "What if they discover us?" "Then we're no worse off than if we fight now," William said. "But I'd bet on human ingenuity over alien rules any day." The vote was unanimous. Earth would appear to comply with the Council's demands. Ships would return. Jump gates would be dismantled in very public ceremonies. The aliens would be invited to inspect everything. And in hidden labs deep under the Marianas Trench, the Amazon rainforest, and the Gobi Desert, humanity would start working on Plan B. 3 days later, Susan Miller stood before cameras broadcasting worldwide. Her face was solemn as she announced Earth's official response. "Humanity respects the Galactic Council's decision," she said, each word carefully chosen. "We will comply with all requirements of the ban." What she didn't say was that humanity had never been good at accepting cages, not even galactic ones. The real work was just beginning. 5 years passed since Earth promised to obey the Galactic Council's ban on space travel. On paper, humanity had given up on the stars. The jump gates were gone. The colony ships were scrapped. Council observers visited Earth regularly and found nothing suspicious. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, that was about to change. Dr. Alan Wright stared at the small metal device floating in a testing chamber. It looked simple, just a sphere about the size of a basketball with a faint blue glow. Yet it represented 5 years of secret work by the best minds on Earth. "Is it ready?" asked Olivia Martinez, the lead engineer on Project Backdoor. Her dark hair was streaked with premature gray from years of stress and little sleep. Ellen nodded slowly. "The math checks out. The miniature tests worked. This is the real thing, a full-size bubble drive." "In simple terms, for those of us who don't have 4 paids?" asked William Carter, now General Carter, who had aged considerably since the van. Alan smiled. "It's like this. The aliens use jump gates that punch through space. They look for tears in space-time. Our bubble drive doesn't tear anything. It creates a small bubble of altered physics around the ship, and that bubble simply slides between the normal rules of space. And they can't detect it." Susan Miller asked. She had spent the last 5 years keeping the council representatives happy and distracted. "They're looking for ripples in a pond," Olivia explained. "We're not making ripples. We're putting our boat in a plastic bubble and floating on top of the water." General Carter nodded. "When can we test it on a real ship?" "Tomorrow," Alan said. "We've modified the Mars supply vessel Independence. On paper, it's a routine delivery run. But if this works, it will go far beyond Mars." The next day, a small group gathered in the control room. The Independence was already in orbit, having left Earth under the watching eyes of Council observers. As far as they knew, it was carrying food and medicine to the Mars colonies, the only off-world human presence still allowed. Olivia's fingers flew over the controls. "Bubble drive powering up. Captain Lee reports all systems normal." On their screens, the Independence looked ordinary. Then a soft blue glow surrounded it. "Bubble formed," Alan said, his voice tight with tension. "Now we wait." For 30 seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then the ship vanished. "Where is it?" General Carter demanded. Alan checked his instruments. "If it worked, it's now near Alpha Centauri. Round trip should take about 7 minutes." They waited in silence. 6 minutes passed. 7, 8. Susan touched Alan's shoulder. Could something have gone wrong? Before he could answer, the blue glow reappeared on their screens. The Independence was back. Captain Peter Lee's voice came through, barely containing his excitement. "Independence reporting successful test. We reached Alpha Centauri, took readings, and returned. The bubble drive works perfectly. No sign of detection from Council ships in the area." The room erupted in cheers. General Carter shook Alan's hand so hard it hurt. "We did it," Olivia whispered. "We found our backdoor." "What's next?" Susan asked when the celebration quieted. General Carter's face grew serious. "Now we begin Phase 2. We build more ships with bubble drives. We find worlds the Council doesn't want, the ones too harsh for their delicate constitutions, and we start over." "The Council thinks they've caged humanity," Alan said, "but they've just pushed us to evolve." As they spoke, the Independence docked with a secret station hidden on the far side of the moon. Inside its cargo hold were soil and atmospheric samples from a planet 4 light-years away, a planet that could become humanity's new home. The tests confirmed what they had hoped. The planet was harsh by Council standards. Higher gravity, more radiation, extreme seasons. But for humans, with proper preparation, it would be challenging but survivable. They had found their first foothold among the stars. 10 years after the bubble drive's first test, humanity had spread to 11 new worlds. These weren't the nice, comfortable planets that Council species preferred. These were the difficult worlds, the ones with challenges that made them perfect hiding places. Captain Frank Nelson stood on the bridge of the colony ship Pioneer, looking down at their newest target, a planet they had named New Anchorage. Its gravity was 1.3 times that of Earth, enough to make Council species uncomfortable, but something humans could adapt to. "Final approach, Captain," said his pilot, Lisa Young. "Weather patterns look nasty. There's a storm forming at our landing site. Frank smiled. Perfect. The worse it looks, the less likely we'll have visitors. The Pioneer carried 200 colonists in cryo-sleep, along with supplies to establish the seventh major human settlement beyond the solar system. Each colony had its own specialty. Furnace, with its extreme temperature swings, had become a center for materials science. High Ground, with its thin atmosphere, specialized in aerospace research. New Anchorage would focus on heavy industry, taking advantage of the planet's rich mineral deposits. Message from Earth, Captain, said Communications Officer Ben Harris. General Carter sends congratulations and says to remind everyone. No radio transmissions once were established. Tight beam communications only. Frank nodded. The bubble drive let ships travel undetected, but radio waves could still be picked up by Council monitoring stations. Each colony existed in a bubble of silence, communicating only through visiting ships. The landing was rough but successful. As the colonists awoke from cryo-sleep, Frank addressed them from a makeshift stage. "Welcome to your new home," he said. "It won't be easy. The gravity will make your muscles ache. The storms will test your buildings. But remember what we're doing here, proving that humanity won't be contained." Governor Laura Wilson took over the microphone. She was small but tough, with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "We have 4 months to get basic shelter established before winter hits," she said. "The engineers tell me this planet's winters make Arctic storms look like gentle breezes, so let's get to work." The colonists cheered. These weren't ordinary settlers. Each had been chosen for their skills, resilience, and ability to keep secrets. They knew the risks of discovery by the Council, but they also knew the alternative, a humanity forever trapped in one solar system, slowly using up its resources. 6 months later, New Anchorage had transformed from a landing site to a real settlement. Underground living quarters protected the colonists from the worst storms. Mining operations had begun in the northern mountains. The first children born off Earth played in specially designed indoor parks. Frank visited each colony every 18 months, bringing news and supplies. On his return to Earth after his New Anchorage trip, he found General Carter and Susan Miller waiting at the secret landing facility. "How are they doing?" Susan asked. "Thriving," Frank said. "They've already started exporting heavy metals to Furnace for processing. Each colony is developing its own culture, but they all share one thing: pride in being beyond the Council's reach." General Carter nodded. "Good, because we're ready for the next phase. We've identified 4 more suitable planets, and Dr. Wright has improved the bubble drive. The new version is 30% more efficient." "Any sign the Council suspects?" Frank asked. Susan shook her head. "Their inspections have become routine. They think we're a beaten species, content to play in our little sandbox." "Their mistake," Frank said with a smile. As they spoke, 100 other bubble drive ships were under construction in hidden facilities around Earth. The human expansion was accelerating. Each new colony produced resources that helped build more ships and supply more colonies. The Council thought they had caged a dangerous animal. Instead, they had simply forced it to become more creative, more determined, and more cautious. Humanity wasn't just surviving. It was growing stronger in the shadows. Junior Science Officer Thrall Mech had never wanted to be on a patrol ship. He had joined the Galactic Council's Science Division to study new life forms, not to float through empty space looking for rule breakers. But here he was on the Harmonious Intent, running boring scans of the Epsilon Indi system. "Anything interesting?" Captain Ziv asked, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of boredom in his species. "No, sir," Throlmech said. "Just the usual." He stopped. His scanner showed something odd. "Wait. There's a gravitational anomaly on the 4th planet." Captain Ziv moved closer. "Natural formation." "I don't think so." Throlmech adjusted his instruments. "The pattern is too regular, and there's trace elements in the atmosphere that shouldn't be there." The captain's skin darkened. a sign of concern. "Take us closer." Quietly. As the harmonious intent moved into orbit around Epsilon Indi IV, Thrall-Mech's excitement grew. The planet should have been uninhabitable, high gravity, strong radiation, extreme seasons, but his sensors now clearly showed artificial structures on the surface. "Sir, there's a settlement down there," he said, "and energy signatures consistent with advanced technology." Which species would colonize such a harsh world? Captain Ziv wondered. The answer came when they intercepted communications from the surface. The language was unmistakable. Human. "Impossible," the captain whispered. They were banned. They surrendered their technology. Thrall-Mech felt a mixture of fear and fascination. Like all council members, he had learned about the dangerous human species who had been contained in their home system. But unlike most, he had also studied Earth's natural history in his free time, developing a secret admiration for the resilience of Earth creatures. "Sir, what do we do?" asked the weapons officer. "We follow protocol," Captain Ziv said firmly. "We report to Council headquarters and await instructions." "That will take days," Thrall-Mech said. "Shouldn't we learn more first? What if they're just a small group of rebels? We don't know if Earth's government is involved." After some debate, the captain agreed to send a single shuttle to the surface with Thrall-Mech and 2 security officers. They would observe only, not make contact. But their shuttle was spotted on descent. By the time they landed, a human welcome party was waiting. Leading them was a small, gray-haired woman who introduced herself as Governor Laura Wilson. "Welcome to New Anchorage," she said calmly, as if council visitors were an everyday occurrence. "I assume you're here about the gravity anomaly." Thrall-Mech was stunned by her composure. You know why we're here." "We've been expecting someone to notice eventually," Laura said, "though we thought we had a few more years. Would you like to see our colony?" "Against orders," Thrall-Mech agreed. What he saw amazed him. Humans working in gravity that would crush his bones. Children playing in radiation levels his species would find lethal. A thriving community in conditions the Council had deemed uninhabitable. "How many colonies like this exist?" he asked as they toured a greenhouse filled with adapted Earth plants. Laura just smiled. "Would you like some coffee? It's a human drink. Very stimulating." Over this strange bitter drink, Thrall-Mech found himself talking with Laura about Earth biology, evolution, and how humans had adapted to their new home. He was so fascinated he almost forgot the seriousness of the situation, until his communicator beeped. "Science officer, return immediately," Captain Ziv ordered. "Council enforcement fleet is en route. Estimated arrival in 3 days." Laura's expression didn't change, but her eyes grew harder. "Well, it seems we need to accelerate our plans." "They'll destroy your colony," Thrall-Mech said, surprised by his own distress at the thought. "They can try," Laura replied. "But first, you have a choice to make, science officer. Return to your ship, or stay and learn what humans are really capable of." Thrall-Mech looked at his communicator, then back at the remarkable human colony that shouldn't exist. For the first time in his life, he considered disobeying orders. 3 days after the discovery of New Anchorage, the Council enforcement fleet arrived. 5 massive warships dropped out of jump space and took position around the planet. Their weapons systems powered up immediately. On the lead ship, Marshal Kexlar stood with his 4 arms crossed against his armored chest. He had overseen the removal of 3 other species who had violated Council directives in his long career. Humans would be the 4th. "Open communications with the settlement," he ordered. On the view screen, Governor Laura Wilson appeared, looking remarkably calm. "This is Marshal Kexlar of the Galactic Council Enforcement Division. Your presence in this system violates the ban placed on your species. You will begin immediate evacuation. You have 12 hours before we commence orbital bombardment." Laura didn't even blink. "Marshal, I suggest we discuss this. We have a diplomatic team ready to meet with you." "There is nothing to discuss," Kexlar said. The ban was clear. Nevertheless, we request a meeting. Dr. Daniel Ross, our chief negotiator, will arrive at your ship in 1 hour. Before Kexelar could refuse, Laura ended the transmission. He growled in frustration. These humans were as arrogant as the report suggested. Meanwhile, below on New Anchorage, Laura was meeting with her emergency counsel. Thrall Mech, who had chosen to stay, watched from the corner of the room. "Evacuation ships are ready," said Security Chief John Beck, "but not to retreat. The other colonies have been warned." "What about our defenses?" Laura asked. "Online and hidden," John replied. "They won't see them until they're activated." Laura nodded. "Good. Dr. Ross, you know what to do." Daniel Ross, a tall man with dark skin and a diplomat's careful manner, stood up. "Keep them talking. Find out what they know about the previous banned species." "They won't tell you anything," Thrall Mech said. "That information is restricted even within the Council." Daniel smiled. "Then I'll have to be persuasive." 1 hour later, Daniel and 2 assistants docked with the Council flagship. Marshal Kexelar received them in a meeting room designed to intimidate. The ceiling was too high, the air too cold, and the lights too bright for human comfort. "Your violation is clear," Kexelar began. "This meeting is merely a courtesy before enforcement." Daniel nodded. "We understand your position, Marshal. But there's something that confuses us. In our research, we found references to 3 other species who were banned from space travel. Yet there's no record of what happened to them." Kexelar's skin paled slightly, a sign of surprise. "Where did you get that information?" "That's not important," Daniel said. "What happened to those species? Were they destroyed like you planned to destroy us?" While they talked, one of Daniel's assistants discreetly placed a small device under the table. It began quietly copying data from the ship's archives. Kexelar stood up. "This meeting is over. Return to your planet and begin evacuation." Back on the surface, Laura received word that the first phase was complete. The copying device was working. Now they needed time. She opened a channel to the Council fleet. "Marshal, we need more time to organize our people. Many of our colonists are in remote mining stations." "You have 12 hours, as stated," Kexelar replied coldly. As they argued, something unexpected happened. Ships began appearing around the planet. Human ships with bubble drive technology. Not just 1 or 2, but dozens. Then more arrived from the other colonies. On the Council flagship, alarms blared. "Sir, we're detecting multiple vessels," an officer reported. They're everywhere." Kexelar stared at the tactical display in shock. Instead of a single illegal colony, he was facing what appeared to be a substantial human fleet. "How is this possible?" he demanded. Their technology was destroyed. On New Anchorage, Laura watched the standoff with a grim smile. "Tell Dr. Ross to check his data copy. We need to know the truth about those other banned species before this gets ugly." Thrall Mech moved to her side. "Your people have been busy." "You have no idea," Laura replied. "This is just one system. Want to guess how many more are out there?" The standoff above New Anchorage had lasted for 6 hours. Human ships faced the Council fleet, neither side firing yet, but both ready. On the planet's surface, Dr. Daniel Ross and Thrall Mech hunched over a screen showing the copied Council data. "There," Thrall Mech said, pointing at a file. "That's the classified record about the banned species." Daniel opened it, and both men fell silent as they read. The truth was nothing like what humans had feared. "This can't be right," Daniel said. "According to this, the 3 species that were banned before us, they're all Council members now." Thrall Mech's skin changed color in surprise. "The Vexari, the Inathi, and the Zolti. They're all senior Council races today." They read further. The bans hadn't been punishments, they were tests. Any species that truly gave up space travel was deemed too obedient, too lacking in determination to join galactic society. Those who found ways around the ban proved they had the innovation and drive needed for Council membership. "It's a test of worthiness," Throlmek whispered. My people never told me. Daniel stood up quickly. We need to tell the governor. But before they could leave, the building shook. Outside, they could see energy weapons firing into the sky. The battle had begun. On the council flagship, Marshal Kexlar had lost patience. Fire warning shots. Show these humans what they're facing. His weapons officer hesitated. Sir, Science Director Velma is hailing us from the research vessel. A new face appeared on the screen. An older alien with tentacle-like appendages where a human would have hair. Marshal, hold your fire, Velma said. Junior Science Officer Throlmek has sent me disturbing information. We need to discuss the true purpose of the ban. Kexalar's eyes narrowed. There is nothing to discuss. The humans violated council law. As they were expected to, Velna replied calmly. That was always the purpose. In the sudden silence, another transmission broke through from Governor Laura Wilson. Marshal, your own records show the truth. The ban was a test, not a punishment. We have the proof. Kexalar's skin darkened with anger. Those records are fake. This human is lying. I can confirm they are genuine, Velna said. The council has done this 3 times before. As they argued, Daniel rushed into the command center on New Anchorage. Governor, we need to stop this. The ban was a test, but some council members don't want us to pass it. Laura nodded. We figured that out. The council is divided. Look. She pointed to the display showing the space battle. 3 council ships were now firing on the other 2. The council fleet was fighting itself. Marshal Kexalar wants to destroy us and the evidence, Laura explained. Science Director Velna is trying to stop him. Throlmek watched in horror. The council has been divided for centuries between those who fear change and those who embrace it. Humans have just brought the conflict to the surface. On the council flagship, Kexalar gave orders that would change everything. Destroy the human colony. No witnesses. But his weapons officer stood up. No, sir. I've seen the records. This violates council principles. Traitor. Kexalar pulled out his personal weapon. Before he could fire, security officers from his own ship surrounded him. Marshal Kexalar, you are relieved of command by order of Science Director Velna. As Kexalar was taken away, Laura received a message from Velna. Governor Wilson, I apologize for this situation. There is much to discuss about humanity's future in the galactic community. Laura smiled at Daniel and Throlmek. Tell the director we're ready to talk. But this time, as equals. In orbit, the human ships maintained their positions, a visible reminder that humanity had not only passed the test, they had changed the rules of the game itself. The council had banned humanity from space, hoping they would either obey or fight. Instead, humans had found a third option. And in doing so, they had exposed a truth that would reshape the galaxy. 2 years after the standoff at New Anchorage, Earth hosted a ceremony that would have seemed impossible when the ban was first imposed. The Grand Hall of the United Space Command Headquarters in Geneva was filled with representatives from all council species, along with human leaders from Earth and the colonies. Admiral William Carter, older now but standing tall, looked out at the crowd. Beside him, Ambassador Susan Miller held a document that represented humanity's new place in the galaxy. This has been a long journey, William said, opening the ceremony. 17 years ago, in this very room, we were told we had no place among the stars. Today, we sign a treaty as equals. Susan stepped forward. The Reformed Galactic Council recognizes humanity's right to space travel and colonization. And we, in turn, bring our unique perspective to help build a better galactic community. Science Director Velna, now the acting head of the council after the political upheaval, approached the signing table. The test of the ban revealed more than just humanity's resourcefulness, Velna said. It exposed deep flaws in our own organization. For too long, the council has been divided between those who fear change and those who embrace it. Former Marshal Kexalar and his supporters had been removed from power. The council itself had been reorganized, with restrictions against banning species from space travel written into its founding charter. After the formal treaty signing, Susan found Dr. Alan Wright watching the celebration from a quiet corner. "Not enjoying your moment of triumph?" she asked. Alan smiled. "Just thinking about how far we've come. The bubble drive was just the beginning. Now we're sharing technology, learning from each other." It was true. Human ingenuity had impressed the council species. The harsh worlds humans had colonized were now seen as valuable outposts, places where difficult research could be conducted. In return, the council had shared medical and energy technologies that would have taken humans centuries to develop alone. Across the room, Dr. Daniel Ross was deep in conversation with Throlmec, who had become Earth's first non-human resident. Together, they had created a cultural exchange program that was bringing representatives from all species to learn from each other. Governor Laura Wilson, now Earth's representative on the council, joined them. The first group of council scientists arrives at New Anchorage next month. They're fascinated by how we adapted to the high gravity. And the first human students leave for council universities next week, Daniel added. "There's so much to learn." Throlmec's skin rippled with colors that humans had learned meant happiness. "My people still can't believe how quickly you solved problems that stumped us for generations. Your perspective is unique." Outside the hall, regular humans were celebrating too. The ban had become a distant memory. Now human ships openly traveled alongside alien vessels. Earth had become a key meeting point for council activities, its extreme environmental variations perfect for multi-species gatherings. As the evening ended, William Carter and Susan Miller stood on the balcony, looking up at the stars. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when we started Project Backdoor?" William asked. Susan shook her head. "I was just hoping we'd survive. I never dreamed we'd thrive like this." "Humans are being hired as consultants across council space," William said. "Our predator thinking turns out to be valuable when approached properly." "We see opportunities where others see obstacles," Susan agreed. "We find ways around problems instead of accepting them." A shooting star crossed the sky above them, but both knew it wasn't natural. It was a ship, human or alien, heading out to continue exploration. The galaxy had become a smaller place, and humanity's place in it was secure. The Council had banned humanity from space, thinking to contain a dangerous species. Instead, they had forced humans to become more innovative, more determined, and ultimately, more valuable to the galactic community than anyone could have imagined. It turned out that telling humans they couldn't do something was the surest way to guarantee they would not only do it, but do it better than anyone thought possible.